Hey, there I am. Hey, everybody. Give you a quick switch over here. Let me say hello to everybody. Hello, Zini. Hello, Ark. Zini and Ark and Ark and Zini. Vonk, the Dutch guy, how are you this evening? All right, everybody. We actually have plans for tonight. We got a lot to get done. I did forget to comb my face after my shower, so I'm going to run up and do that because I feel like my face is a giant bushy monster. Let me get started on feeding here. In fact, before we actually even feed, let's have a look in the pond now that it's nice and clear. And you can see how I have stones all over the bottom. That'll come into play here shortly. I've got that big piece of wood down there that's actually sticking up out of the water, has moss growing on it. I also have this smaller piece of wood. It's kind of hard to see, but there is a piece of wood right there. And I've also got, if you notice, this long branch that goes all the way across the bottom and sticks out right there. That's another long piece of wood that goes all the way to the other end of the tank. And so we're going to have to work around all those. But the tank looks good when it's nice and clear like this. See if I can get a couple of these koi actually on camera there for a minute. So tonight is the night. We're going to get in there and we're going to install my fish tower. I will try to wipe it out a little more. I was wiping it out before we went live, but it still has like a haziness to it. I don't know. Once it's filled with water, it may seem clearer than that, but I don't know how clear we're actually going to be able to get that. And then I went to Walmart today and I bought a little waste paper basket and I cut 3 of the sides out. I cut the 2 flat sides out and it was still really firm. And so I cut the thin rounded side off the end of this one. And now, like if I push on this side, it collapses fairly easily. So I'm leaving this side on there for the strength. And I set a big jug of kerosene on there, 2.5 gallons, and I even pushed on it a little more, and it held it up just fine. So I think it'll hold the 3 gallons of water. So the idea is that's going to go in the tank on the bottom, except we're going to put it this way so that we can see the fish swimming in and out. And then we're going to set the tower on top of it, and that way the fish will be able to swim up through the hole in the bottom and get in and out of it. If it works, but it doesn't look good and I like it, then maybe we'll modify it and I'll set it up to be more permanent. But it cost me $6 for that trash can, and it'll be a good test of concept. If it works and it's cool and I like it, then we can, put it in there more permanently. Or if it looks okay, we'll just leave it as it is. I think where we're going to put it is up here, kind of more towards the front, so that the island and the waterfall and everything kind of looks like its own thing, and we don't have this weird plastic thing, blocking our view and whatnot. So we'll get on with that here after we get the tank fed. But let me get it fed, then I'm going to run upstairs real quick and get my face combed, and then I'll be right back. Actually, I think tonight I'm going to do the double feeding. We're going to put some on the surface for them, and then I'm going to sprinkle some into the water column directly by putting it into the waterfall, and it just carries it right down into the water rather than floating on the surface. All right, give me a minute or two and I'll be right back. Although I could probably keep talking to you if you want while I'm up here. Navigate my way through the cats. That's the stuff. All right, on my way back down. I feel slightly less mountain man-y now. All right, let me get caught up on some comments here. It is the holidays. I'm not sure what holiday specifically you've got going on, but that's awesome. Eugene, hello. Winston, hello. Eight Young, hello. How are you this evening? Two-weeks holiday, nice. Nope, not listening to Beethoven tonight. I was listening to Beethoven on Wednesday. I tried doing the musical game, but nobody made any guesses. So I will say, if you want to try to guess what I was listening to on Wednesday, Beethoven, not specifically a Christmas song, but a song that is very, very, very frequently played around Christmas time. And it was also heavily featured in the movie A Clockwork Orange. And if you really, really need a give it away kind of hint, it is technically it is an ode. So, what is Beethoven's most famous ode? And that's what I was listening to on Wednesday. Steve. Yeah, it was stupid windy out there today. Why is someone saying hello, Zini, getting hidden? All right. I thought about actually getting in the pond tonight. All I'd have to really do is take my socks off. But there's a few reasons we're not going to do that. Reason number one is it will stir up so much muck and stuff, which is already going to happen anyway, probably. But me getting in there, because in order to get in there and walk around, I'll literally have to like shove stones out of the way with my feet to get a firm, foothold. I've got the snails in there that are down amongst the rocks. I do have a bunch of nearite snails in this pond, believe it or not. I don't know if you can tell, but some of the rocks have like clean areas on them and everything. That's from the nearite snails that are in there. So shoving the rocks around could very well crush some of the snails. It's going to stir up a bunch of shit. It's going to disturb the bed. There's the possibility of me pushing a little stone or something through the bottom and poking a hole in it. There's the possibility of me slipping and falling. Well, I know you're all dying to see that. I am not. So I think we're going to just work on it from outside the pond. I don't think I really need to get in there. It's not like it's going to be a long distance away from me or anything. But we'll give them a few more minutes. So we're going to do that tonight. And then the other thing we're going to do tonight is I've got somebody that has ordered some plants from me. And to get those plants, I need to get those plants. So we're going to go in and we're going to pull some more crypt out tonight. And I'm going to attempt to work on getting the red tiger lotus thinned out. But that's an absolute nightmare because it's all grown into a giant spaghetti mass. And pulling stuff out and trying to tease each plant away from the other plants, etc. It's a pain in the ass. So we're going to get in there and muck with that at some point. So all right, it looks like everybody's done feeding for the most part. So let's figure out how we're going to get in here and really do this. Let me get my scissors and cut this plant back a little bit. We got a dead yellowy frond down here that can come off. We can pull this one off, I think. Let's see, let me pull this one off because it doesn't need to be sticking out all the way over there. I'll throw those in the trash. And I guess putting it kind of right here is going to make the most sense, at least down at this end. I do have water that is flowing, or it should be. Yeah, it's actually still flowing. If you remember, I have a pump at the other end of the tank that's supposed to have a filter on it, and the hose goes all the way around and comes out on this end, blowing that way. And so I didn't want to block it, but I forgot the whole inside of that's completely opened up anyway, so it's not going to really block anything. All right, I got some big pieces of wood in my way. We can also pull some of this shit out of here. Remember when I threw all that dragon's tongue in there? I said they eat all the leaves and then they leave all the twigs and sticks and everything behind. That's what all this is. So we can pull some of that out. All that's going to do is wind up getting caught in the intake pump eventually anyway. And they obviously don't eat it once it's down to this. All right, so we got to move some wood out of the way. And we're going to have to move some rocks out of the way to get that tower put in place. You also move this. You can easily see me knocking into that and breaking it. All right, what do we need to do? I might have to add more water. This is exactly 16 inches tall, and when I measured the depth of the water last night, it was 16 inches deep. So if this doesn't go fully submerged, then we will have to, let's see, do we want to put it this way or do we want to put it this way? I think we'll put it this way for space purposes. Now this is going to have to get down through all those rocks and onto the bottom. God damn, that's a lot of rocks. So many rocks. All right. It's on the bottom, technically. And I was going to say, I didn't even measure this to make sure it's going to fit, but boy, that just fits on there. That doesn't quite really fit on there. This is going to be precarious. Shit. Wish I'd have thought about that. I wonder if there's something we can do. Man, that is really barely sits on top of there. Well, we'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens. I guess just let's add some water to the tank first because it's really close to the edge there. Wish I'd measured that before I tried it. I would have maybe figured out something I could have done to prop it up there. Although I do have an idea of something I can do. All right, let me get a couple of these that are as small as possible. All right, so what we can do is take a couple of these garden spikes I use for my plants, and we can set them on there like so. And I don't like the idea of having those points sticking out that the fish can get caught on. So this is definitely going to be temporary at this point, but it will allow us to get it set up tonight without wrecking the joint. So getting the thing filled and on top of it is going to be the challenging part. I guess we'll start by just putting it completely into the water. Let all the bubbles get out of it. And I'm going to have to cut this super close. God damn, that is heavy. Yeah, this is going to have to, I might have to do the old suck the air out of it once it's in there. Because this is moving. This is actually now trying to float. Well, the fish are already trying to come up into it. Let's do about a half full and see if I can get it up there. All right. Now, let's see how easy it'll be to try to suck that air out of there. This ought to be fun. I guess I'll use the bigger siphon hose, or do I want to use the smaller one? This is going to be like an anti-siphon. I'm going to be in there sucking air out of it rather than the water. Of course, I am going to suck some water out of it first, which is going to suck because that's going to taste nasty as hell. Actually, I'll blow the water out. That's a better idea. No, that's not every bit of the air, but that's enough of it that we'll be able to see what's going on in there. Do you like that lung power? All right. It is up and standing. Do I have a fish up in there already? No, I don't. It's just the reflection in the water. That's wild looking. All right, we can put another little bit of water in there. So let's get feeding on the next tank. Like I said, we got a lot to do, so we also got to get everybody fed tonight. So while we're just letting that top off, we'll let the tank settle down, let the fish get used to that, and hopefully in a little while, we'll get back there and see some fish swimming around in it. And I got to make sure I don't forget that the tank is actually filling at the moment. All right, let me get caught up on some comments here real quick. Yeah, I thought about putting some food up in there. I think they'll figure it out. They'll drift up in there soon enough. Once they figure out it's there, they'll go back in and out of it pretty easily. All right, let me see where I was. Zany is a bad word. You were half right on the Beethoven. I was listening to Ode to Joy, by the way. I hear Squeaker somewhere. Shirley, how are you this evening? Dade, hello. Harryman, hello. How do I siphon out water? I use my mouth and my lungs and just suck some water out of the tank and get a siphon started. If you're careful about it and you know the secret to successful siphoning, then you can do it without getting any water in your mouth. Speaking of water, let me go turn this off. I've done it before. I've gotten water, it gets going before you get it out of your mouth, and all of a sudden, the tank water blasts into your face, or into your mouth. I've had that happen on occasion. First of all, that's no big deal. It's just, aquarium water is not dirty water. It's not necessarily something I'd want in my mouth or to drink, but if it gets in there, it's not going to hurt you, most likely. But when you siphon, the hose is always going to go up and then back down. And wherever it goes back down, like that very high point of the tube, as soon as the water passes the high point, you can take it away from your mouth because it's flowing at that point. You don't have to keep it in your mouth till the water's all the way at the end of the siphon hose. As long as it's up and over the hump, get it out of your mouth and stick the other end in the bucket, and it'll just flow right on out, and you won't have to worry about it. But you got to get it up and over the apex and get it coming down the other side. And as soon as it crests the hill, goes over that hump, take it out of your mouth and start, putting it in the bucket and getting it ready for the siphon. As long as you do that, you will never have anything to worry about. All right, let's see what this looks like with just the spotlight shining down on it. Oh, that'll look all right. We'll definitely be able to see the fish in there. I don't know if it's going to cause a lot of glare on the other tanks. We can always turn it off until we get back to this one. But in the meantime, let's keep moving. Like I said, we got a lot to do tonight, and I don't want to spend a full hour getting all the tanks fed. And this tank I was going to work on this tank tonight because it needs a water change. The water's getting a little dirty looking. Not dirty, but it's getting a lot of tannin staining in it. The glass needs to be cleaned out. It could use a little bit of a gravel vac. Some of the mulm and stuff is starting to build up in there a little bit. So maybe Sunday night we'll do that. I think tonight we might at least get it topped off. But we'll play that by ear. Like I said, let's keep moving. Hamilton, how are you? I was thinking about you the other day. I haven't seen you in a long time. TJH, hello. I tried Purigen. Did I miss somebody? I said hello to Hamilton. Zany, thank you. I don't think I missed anybody, but just in case I missed somebody, I'm going to say hello again to everybody. Oh, Robert, there you are. Did I say hi to you already, Robert? Yeah, if you're gravel vacuuming too much, you will definitely you can disrupt the flow. When you get the siphon started, if that's what you're talking about, that initial start shouldn't be down in the gravel. The water should be able to free flow through it. Once it's flowing, you can scrunch it down into the gravel, although I don't recommend scrunching it down into the gravel. Actually, while we're talking, I'm going to go get the hose and we'll start filling this one up. As far as Purigen, I tried using that a little bit when I first got started into the hobby. And that was back when I thought, I basically bought into all the stuff everybody always says about, not having any algae in your tank. And everybody acts like, having tannin stained water. And of course, I was more worried about the nitrate than I was the tannin staining. And so I used the Purigen in order to try to get the nitrate out. And I found that it was kind of pointless because it got clogged up, within a couple days. It wasn't doing what it, sort of like with the activated carbon. You put activated carbon, it might pull some tannin out of your water, but 3 days later it's fulled up and it's not pulling tannin out of your water anymore. So is it worth it, or just do a water change to get the tannin out of your tank, And so that's what I ultimately opted, doing, is when the tannins get to be too built up, I just do a big water change. I'm in the situation where I can do very large water changes without disrupting my water chemistry. So when I do a water change, I do, 75%, get the tank nice and cleaned up, and then I don't have to worry about the tannins for another month or two. But the Purigen, I guess it works. I don't know exactly what Purigen is. I do know that I got, when I had my water system filled up, one of the canisters I have in there has a ion exchange resin that is specifically designed to take nitrate out of my water. And when I looked at it and smelled it, it was identical to Purigen. If you're familiar with Purigen, you know how it feels like little plastic beads, but they also feel almost like they're sort of slippery, like they're sort of coated with something. They're not, but they sort of feel that way. Very, very weird sort of feel to it when you feel the actual texture of the Purigen. And so this stuff that I've got in the other room looks, feels, and it has a very unique smell as well. And it smells exactly like Purigen. So I don't know if this is Purigen. Let me see if I can find it. I might have thrown it away because I've had this for so many years and I never use it. I don't even see it anymore. Oh, there it is. It fell off the shelf and it's lying down here. It's all in a big clump. It's still loose. I just had to shake it up a little bit. So that's my original bottle of Purigen. And if you actually look at the stuff that I got from the people, it's Purigen. I mean, that's exactly what Purigen looks like if you were to pour it out. Well, it's really, really bone dry. It's like sand at this point. I think I'm just going to throw it away. So again, I don't know if it's the same stuff or not, but I do have this in my water softening system for taking nitrate out of the water. But can Purigen be recharged, or do you just treat it like it's the activated carbon and just use it and then throw it away? Because my stuff is an ion exchange resin, which means it can be recharged. That's why I run I put the salt and everything in there, and it runs the brine solution through it, and the sodium ions actually strip off all the nitrate and recharge the stuff. It's ready to go to start picking up nitrate again when the system starts back up after a backwash. Fox and family, hello. Purigen can be recharged. It's probably the same stuff then. Yeah, if it's either bleach or super concentrated salt water, then it's got to be the same stuff. A lot of places will advertise that, oh, we don't use salt water to, you can use bleach to, it's all the same thing. Bleach is sodium hypochlorite. There's a ton of sodium in it. It's the sodium ions that are being used. So the way my water softener system works, whether it's either the soft water or if it's pulling nitrate out of the water, it's doing it the same way. It's an ion exchange resin. And what that means is the resin has a slight electrical charge and it will pull individual ions out of the water. So if it's got a negative charge, it'll pull any positively charged ions out of the water, like calcium or magnesium. So if I've got the hardness in my water, the calcium or the magnesium, as it flows through this medium, it gets attracted to it and it basically sticks to it like a magnet. And that pulls the hardness out of my water. But eventually that resin will get bound up with all of the, calcium and magnesium and stuff, and it has to be cleared off and ready to go again. And the way you do that is you saturate it in brine. Brine being defined as water that's completely saturated with sodium chloride. And because the electrical charge attracts the sodium more readily than it does the calcium or the magnesium, you put it in that brine solution and there's so much available sodium that the sodium starts knocking the calcium and the magnesium off of the resin, and then the sodium attaches to it. And that's the way it's meant to be. And that's in its recharged state. So when I run hard water through it again, the sodium ions get knocked off because there's now more calcium and magnesium in the water, in my fresh water. The only way it recharges in brine solution. There's got to be so much of the sodium that it knocks the magnesium and the calcium out of the way. Once it goes back to normal operation, there's no real sodium in the water, but there is calcium and magnesium. And so now, again, the calcium and magnesium knock the sodium ions off. They stick to the resin, and the cycle continues. And that's why I have to backwash my system every so often and cycle that salt water through there. It recharges all that ion exchange medium. And so presumably the Purigen works on a similar principle, and it's some sort of sodium-based ion exchange resin. So that would be my guess, but I don't know exactly what Purigen is or how it works. But if I had to think out loud and speculate, that's what it would be. But I don't actually use it. I long ago learned that doing water changes is just part of the hobby. It's not really difficult or time consuming. And rather than worry about all these additives and having to keep on top of what's in my filter and when I need to recharge things and everything, it's just do a water change. And then, like, presto magic, an hour later, I'm done my water change and all the tannin's gone. I don't have to worry about it being slowly reduced over time by some mechanism or whatever. I just do a water change and it's gone. My nitrates are getting a little too high. I do a water change and they're back down to being low again. It's just easier. And so that's usually my go-to way of dealing with almost all that stuff, is just do a water change. Bob. No, I probably won't be using black sand again. I do like the black substrate. I just don't like sand. Oh, it's way more. If you're talking about like sodium hypochlorite to water ratio, it's way less than 8 to 1. You might have used 8 to 1 in an industrial setting. I used to do professional cleaning. I would do house cleaning, like the siding and decks and stuff. And through the commercial company that we were purchasing our cleaning agents through, we could get 30% sodium hypochlorite, which is like you got to have a license to buy 30% sodium hypochlorite. If you buy the cheap stuff like the Walmart brand sodium hypochlorite or household bleach, that is about 3.5% sodium hypochlorite, and the rest is water. If you buy like a good name brand like Clorox, it'll be between like 5 and maybe as high as 7% sodium hypochlorite. But that's household bleach is down. You're in the single digits of percentage of sodium hypochlorite. But that bleach, what you think of as bleach, the smell of bleach, the chemical that's doing the thing, doing the bleaching and all, that's the sodium hypochlorite. Yeah, personally, I like the way tannins look. Not only are tannins actually good for your tank, they're good for your fish. It's basically like an antimicrobial and antibacterial agent, so it helps keep your tank healthier. There's a lot of benefits to having tannin in your water, but I like the way it looks. I like that tannin stained water. It looks natural to me. I like crystal clear water too, don't get me wrong, but there's just something about that golden sort of hue that you get in the water. It changes the way the fish look a little bit. In fact, I used to have golden shiners, and I always found it to be an odd name because they're just as silvery as silver can be. But I found out that where they live, they actually swim around in fairly tannin stained water. And when I let my tank get nice and tannin stained, the more tannin that developed in the tank, the golder these fish began to look. And by the time I had a nice, good, staining on the tank, and there was some real color to the tank, I had golden shiners. Like it completely changed the way these silver fish looked just by having the tannin in the water. Now, again, some people may not like that. Some people may prefer to see the nice, bright, vibrant colors without having to look through brown water. But I personally, I like it. I enjoy having some tannin in my water. So I think about fish keeping very differently now than I did when I first got into the hobby. When I first got into the hobby, I didn't know anything about it, and I had to go by what I learned from others. But as I gained experience and did things my own way and tried new things and, just began having fish tanks for periods of time, I began to develop my own tastes and my own, like, I don't care if everybody else says you shouldn't have tannin in your water. I like it. It's my fish tank, and so I'm going to have it. And just over time, I've just completely changed the way I've looked at keeping fish. Hey, Heavyweight, how are you? Um, I don't think I would do a 5 gallon water change every day in a 55. For one, it's not necessary if you've got the tank, properly filtrated and cycled and all that kind of stuff. And that's just such a small water change. I just don't really see what the point in it is. You're just do one once a week, but do a slightly larger water change. Take 15 gallons out of there, or 20 gallons out of there, even if if you can get away with it, and do that once a week if you feel that's necessary. The everyday thing and doing the water changes or whatever. I mean, if you enjoy doing that and you like tinkering with your tank or whatever, knock yourself out, do it however you like. But as far as feeling the need to do that and feeling like it's a necessity that you have to get that water changed out every day a little bit like that, I don't think that's necessary at all. Yeah, you were using some industrial shit. If it was 8-to-1 sodium hypochlorite, I don't think I have any mollies in that tank. I have swordtails and platies and guppies. No, there's no fish in the tower yet. I've been keeping an eye on that. A quartz geode? Yeah, that's fine. No, I have never used the Marison Oxy. But sodium chlorite, I know it sounds similar and it probably has some of the same basic ingredients. But when it comes to chemistry, you change one carbon molecule or add or remove an oxygen or a nitrogen somewhere, and it's completely different. Look at the difference between water and hydrogen peroxide, so that one tiny little change can make a huge difference. So I don't know what the sodium chlorite is, but it's got the word oxy in there, so it's clearly an oxidizing agent, which is what sodium hypochlorite is. That's a powerful oxidizer. That's why it bleaches stuff out. The oxidation process destroys proteins and all sorts of stuff. All right, we're going to start by fruit flies in this one again, because I got a zillion fruit flies. They're breeding in here like mad, and these fish really like them. The downside is they got fruit flies all crawling around in my basement. These are flightless, fortunately, but they do get out and they crawl around the lid, and I get them on my hands by the time I get the thing closed again. Oh, God, and it stinks so bad whenever I open it up. It smells gross. I don't remember the actual species of platies that they were. I was given them by a viewer, and he gave me about 80 live bears all at one time. It was just a whole bag full of guppies and platies and mollies and swordtails. So I have no idea what they were called, but none of them were a wild type or a wild caught. They're all, cultivated species. Bought some new Nick juice tonight, and it's gross. I really wish I'd have thought about it more before I bought it. I wanted something in a banana flavor, and so the only thing he had was called Banana Dream Ice, and that sounds pretty good. But the first thing that I should have paid attention to was the word ice in the name. I didn't even cross my mind that ice means that it has that cooling, sort of menthol-y kind of feel to it, and I really don't like that at all. And so I've got this brand new package of, or a brand new bottle of Nick juice, and it's like I've taken like 3 puffs off of it, and I'm done with it already. I'm gonna throw it away or give it away because it's gross. So right off the bat, I got the ice when I didn't want to. And secondly, it doesn't taste like fucking banana. I don't know what it tastes like, but it don't taste like banana in any way. And it's Banana Dream Ice. So all I got was this weird flavored menthol-y cooling on my throat, makes my lips feel like I've been sucking on a peppermint. I don't like that. So now I got to go out to the damn store tomorrow again because I'm out of, I'm down to my last pod of my other vape juice. That's what I get for not paying attention. Oh, let me see. Just getting caught up. Yeah, dreaming of frozen bananas. Hey, Craig. I guess maybe I honestly, now that I said that out loud, I guess maybe I kind of was thinking that, like the banana ice. I was thinking of like a banana daiquiri or like a frozen banana drink or something. Like, again, I just didn't put the ice, like, I just didn't register that the ice means it's got that cooling effect on it or whatever. And it really should have, stood out to me. But now I got it and it's gross. So I'm down to my last pot of banana cream. They didn't have any of that today. Shamu. Yeah, it's not quite menthol. It's weird. Menthol has a sort of a minty flavor to it. This is just like the cooling sensation. It doesn't really seem to have like a flavor. It doesn't taste minty, but it's got that sensation. Like if you ever used icy hot, it makes your skin feel like it's on fire and freezing cold at the same time. If you took the fiery part away and just had that cold sensation, like that's what it does. And I can literally, not only just like in my mouth and on my lips, but like in my lungs, I get that weird cool sensation in my fucking lungs, and it just feels weird. I do not like it. Oh yeah, goldfish destroy duckweed. I don't even know what a Petoskey stone is. I know quartz is fine to put in a tank. That's not an issue at all. The snow goes away, Bob. It is gone. We had heavy, heavy rain last night. And according to my wife, when she left for work this morning, she said it felt balmy outside. It was so warm. It was in like the mid 50s or something. When I went to the Walmart this afternoon, knowing that today's high temperature was supposed to be in the mid 50s, I went up to Walmart about 1:30 this afternoon, and I didn't dress for it. I dressed for mid 50s. Man, it was fucking cold out. It was like 40 degrees or 41 degrees, according to my truck, and the wind was howling. I had to park all the way at the top of the parking lot and walk down. And of course, like I said, I'm just wearing my clogs, and all I had on was a hoodie and a t-shirt, and the wind was blowing straight through me. It's what Terry Pratchett refers to as the lazy wind. It doesn't have the energy to bother blowing around you. It just blows straight through you. It was that kind of wind today, a lazy wind. And god damn was I cold walking down into that Walmart. Well, if Petoskey stone is limestone, then it's safe to put in your tank, but it's not inert. It still will impact your tank, but it will do the same thing that any kind of calcium carbonate would. It will harden the water and raise your pH. Remember, those are two separate things. Hard water and pH are not one and the same. So if you're adding calcium carbonate, you're adding both. You're adding the calcium, which will increase your hardness, but you're also adding the carbonate, which will raise your pH. So if the Petoskey stone is limestone, just remember that it will be affecting your pH and your water chemistry or whatever. Doesn't mean it's not safe. You know, it's not going to poison your fish, but it will affect your water chemistry. Yeah, when I came downstairs and decided I was going to run up and go to the Walmart in a few minutes, it was sunny out. I mean, it looked beautiful. I hadn't been outside, so I didn't know what the temperature was, but it looked gorgeous. The sky was blue, the sun was bright and shining. I thought it was going to feel like springtime when I walked outside. And maybe 10 minutes later or something, I went upstairs to go outside, and the sky was gray and heavy. And before I got to the end of the street, it started raining. By the time I got to the Walmart, which is less than 3 miles from my house, it was sheets of rain were coming down. And then by the time I actually got parked and ready to go inside, the rain had stopped. I was inside. I picked up like 4 things. I was in there maybe 10 minutes, and I came outside and the sun was shining again. It was fucking like bright blue sunny skies. It's still cold, but like that's how fast the weather was changing today. It was weird. Let me see. Well, if you like menthol cigarettes and you ever switch over to vaping, you've got a lot of opportunities because they have a lot of mint flavored stuff. They have a lot of menthol flavored stuff. And apparently they have a lot of these ice flavored products as well, which again isn't quite menthol. It's not listed as being menthol, but you know, it's ice. I wonder why they hid that question or that comment. Mike. All right, let's move on to the next tank because we still got plenty to do and it's almost 9 o'clock already. As of yet, no fish in the tower. And I think in the meantime, what I'm going to do until I can come up with a better way to stand that up is I'm going to put little sponges on the end of those little metal bars, and that way the fish won't inadvertently swim in. They're not sharp, but they're small metal bars that just stick out to an end. I mean, a fish putting an eye on that or getting a gill caught on it or even swimming onto it, you know, not seeing it swimming straight on, having to go into its mouth. I could see that causing some injury, and I do not want that happening. So I'll find a piece of sponge or something and stick little pieces on there. It'll look silly, but it'll keep the fish from getting hurt. And then, you know, in the meantime, I can decide whether I want to make it more elaborate and do it in a more permanent way. And then, of course, we do have plants we're going to be pulling out of my 125. Yeah, the orange discus in there is getting pretty big. I'm starting to run out of the gouramis too. We found a few dead ones in there now, and currently I only see 2. I think I've got more than 2 still left in there, but you know, depending, you know, judging by the condition, I found a couple of those gouramis. If I'd have been a couple of more days, they would have just been gone. So it's entirely possible that some of the other gouramis did die, and they were just in the back of the tank, or you know, somewhere where I couldn't see them, and they've just rotted away. Because I still only see the 2 gouramis in there, and so maybe it's going to be time to start rebuilding my supply of gouramis in my gourami tank. Although I ought to call this my cyanobacteria tank. I think pearl gouramis have like a 5-year lifespan, something like that, maybe 5 to 7, somewhere in that neighborhood. I can ask the computer. Computer, what is the lifespan of a pearl gourami?
From Animalia.bio. It reaches about 12 centimeters, 4.7 in, TL. Its body is a brownish silver color, covered in a pearl-like pattern with a distinct black line running from the fish's head and gradually thinning towards the caudal fin.
Sure, we know what they look like.
The pearl gourami's appearance has given rise to other popular names, such as the lace gourami and the mosaic gourami.
All right, told us everything but what I wanted to know. I'm going to still stick with what I had said, like 5 to 7 years or something. I wouldn't worry about it, Shamu. If you are concerned about it, you can get the biofilm off the surface of the tank, and that'll stop it from feeding on it. You can do that with a simple air stone or increase surface agitation or whatever, or do a skim when you do your next water change, skim the surface a little bit, and you'll get some of that biofilm out of there. And again, if you remove the biofilm, they won't have anything to munch on. Just say, who the hell is Jarvis? But I got you. Yeah, 4 to 8 years. That's what I figured. I would still said 5 to 7. 4 to 8 seems like a pretty wide range. The only fish in the hobby that are like really short-lived are live bears. You might get 3 or 4 years out of a molly. You might get 2 to 3 years out of a guppy. Platies are the same way, maybe 3 or 4 years out of a platy. Betta fish don't live terribly long. All right, we're going to throw granules in here tonight. And if you pay attention to the bottom, you will see my strided bodia. The loaches that are in there will be coming out and making an appearance very soon. Just let some of that granules make it to the bottom. Yeah, some killifish are really short-lived. There's a few out there that have, fairly short lifespans of a year or two. But most fish, like skirt tetras, and once you get up into that range, you're looking at, 3 to 5 years. And then from there, I would say you're going into the 5 to 7 year range fish. And that's kind of where I put the pearl gouramis there. And that, you should get 5 years out of them. You might get 8, but you should get 4 or 5 years out of them fairly easily. Did not realize how thirsty I was. All right, still no fish up in the tower. Yeah, I've never had the triops before, triops, however you pronounce that. I tried one time and only a couple of them hatched, and then the ones that hatched were dead within a couple of days. So I don't really know what to make of that. We're going to go ahead and skip this 40 here. There's not much to look at in that one. Probably should have topped this tank off while I had the hose out here. Speaking of biofilm, I'm actually starting to get the colored sheen like you get from the oils. We're getting some delightful shades of blue in there. So this tank, you can see that I've got the filter turned way down low, so it's barely running. And with all that vegetation and everything, this side of the tank, it's like no water movement at all. And that's why I get that biofilm on the surface. It's not hurting anything. It just doesn't look all that great. So I'll get in there one of these days and do a water change, and we'll skim the surface. Honestly, if I just top the tank off, the water will swirl around enough that it breaks all that biofilm up, and it's not so visible. All right, let me lower you down a little bit. There you go. I don't know why I'm getting lag time between my camera and my laptop. I get lag time on the tablet because that's what you guys are actually seeing. And there is a lag time of a few seconds, but I usually get pretty much real-time movement on my monitor when I'm trying to point the camera, make sure you guys are looking at the right thing. The biofilm does definitely hold the food at the surface. If I break it up a little and push it through, it'll go down. But otherwise, it just floats. Five to 15 years. See, that seems like a wide range. I have never had a flower horn myself. Nice one, Bob. Yeah, no face is normally a fairly active fish. It just sometimes when I'm trying to get him on video to do a, live show, he doesn't come out. He hides and does his thing. But I can look into this tank when I'm sitting in my den in the other room, my little fort, whatever you want to call it. And I see him in there all the time, just poking around, looking into nooks and crannies and corners and swimming around. Yeah, that female guppy has been in there looking like that for a very long time, and she hasn't had any more babies. So I don't know if she's fat and pregnant or if she's bloated, but she's been in there forever. All the other guppies have long ago died off, and she's still just in there swimming around. So I'm kind of waiting for her to pass, and then I might get some new guppies to add to the tank, because I do like me some guppies. They're one of my favorite fish, actually. Yeah, I like the way they distinguish between 5 to 15 years. If you don't take very good care of your animal, it'll only live 5 years. But if you take good care of it, it'll live 15. Well, then I would say that the lifespan of the fish is 15. That's like saying, if you feed your dog rat poison, he'll probably won't live to be very old. But if you feed them well, they'll live to be 10. So they have a wide range of lifespans. Like, I don't consider, poor maintenance. Your fish died after 5 years. Like, that's not, you can't count that as the lifespan of the fish. She might be dropping some fry occasionally, but I've never seen any. If they do, they get eaten, very quickly. There's plenty of places for them to hide in there. I've had guppies in other tanks that have predatory fish in them, and guppies just breed so prolifically that you get some of them are going to survive, or at least survive for a while. They might still get eaten as very small fish, but they'll have been in the tank for a week before they get eaten or something. And like, I haven't seen any signs whatsoever of those baby guppies or anything in there in a very long time. So she might be dropping the occasional baby, but I don't think so. Yeah, fish and cold-blooded animals and whatnot often live much longer than their average lifespan. My Tenopoma lived over 10 years, and its lifespan, on the package, it said 5 to 7 years, and I had it for almost 11. Alan Drummond, how are you? I am Dandalf. Yeah, well, remember, any cold-blooded animal, their metabolism, unlike our metabolism that is internally regulated by our body warmth, our metabolism is regulated by different things. Cold-blooded animals' metabolism is rated by, or slowed or accelerated based on the temperature that they're being kept at. And so, the same with growing your fish out. If you want really giant discus, then give them lots of protein several times a day and keep them in really warm water. It cranks up their metabolism and they grow really fast. You're also cranking them through their life cycle really fast. If you want them to live longer, you keep them in cooler water, you give them less food. This is a weird topic that not a lot of people think about. But when it comes to aging, we think of a lot of things about aging, but one of the things that ages us very quickly is free radicals. And free radicals come from eating food. And I'm not going to have a discussion about antioxidants and all that kind of stuff, but the free radicals actually come from the food you consume. It's part of the digestion process, and you get free radicals that are released in your body. So the less food you're consuming, the less speeded up your aging process is going to be. And the same applies with fish. They are subject to free radicals as well. And so the higher metabolism, the warmer temperatures, the more food, the more processing the food through their body, they're producing more free radicals, and you're just really accelerating the lifespan of the fish, or reducing the lifespan of the fish, I should say, by keeping them in really warm water and giving them lots of food and all that kind of stuff. So my discus have never really been in temperatures above 80 degrees, and they're not the biggest discus in the world, but they're beautiful and they're healthy and they function and look like normal fish, and their colors are beautiful. That was my goal. I didn't want them to be gigantic. I wanted them to be healthy. And that's exactly what I got. So I have always kept my discus below 80 degrees since the day I got them. I'm worldwide, baby. So let's see. Thank you, Vonk. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day about the munchies and how much he eats when he gets high. I really don't. That's what I was saying to him. I don't really get the munchies anymore when I get high. I don't get dry mouth. I don't get red eye. If you didn't know I was smoking and getting high, you'd never know I was high. You can ask any of my regular viewers that. Isn't that what I just said, Shamu? All right, speaking of which, I'm going to do a dab. I just did a batch of butane hash oil. This is my Super Silver Haze. I know it doesn't look amazing, but it is. And I really, really like the Super Silver Haze. It's just got such an awesome buzz. Super, super chill without being sedative. It doesn't, give me the couch lock. It doesn't make me want to get sleepy. I don't get the munchies. I don't get any of that kind of stuff. It just turns the volume down. It just slows everything down, settles my, if I got racing thoughts, it just calms everything down. It's just a really, really chill weed. We are still using my glass dab straw here tonight. That's a big one. All right, everybody. At some point, we're going to have to do the deed. I got to get in there and start working on this tank. It's already 9 o'clock. I definitely don't get the munchies when I trip. I don't like eating or drinking anything when I'm tripping. Now, drinking, if I'm thirsty and I start drinking, like I don't really want to. I think it feels like I'm a texture, like you don't know me well enough to know, like I'm like a food texture person. I basically hardly ever eat food. I just live on protein shakes and stuff because I'm really particular about textures and things. And when I'm tripping, chewing stuff up and swallowing it, and like the feeling of it going down into my stomach and knowing I'm putting things inside my body, it just weirds me out. I don't like eating when I'm tripping, and I don't like drinking either. But once I start and I feel the refreshment of like the nice cold iced tea or whatever, I'm just like because I haven't had a drink in 6 hours, but I definitely don't like eating stuff and whatnot when I'm tripping. Do I have to wax the discus? I was going to sharpen them tonight, but I don't know if I want to wax them. Oh, my Amazon Influencer Associates report is ready. Yep, it is definitely in time to do a trim on the 125. Still got no fish in the tank. If you missed it earlier, we did install a fish tower here in the goldfish pond today, and we're still waiting to see if any fish actually swim up into it or not. As of yet, I haven't seen any of them go into it. And I thought about taking some floating pellets and putting some floating pellets in there and letting them float up to the top. But I don't know if they'd be able to find them if they were in there floating up to the top. I guess I could put some flake food in and around the bottom and see if that doesn't get them to come over and kind of figure out that it's there. Let's try doing that and see what happens. Well, there's definitely food swirling around there. Let's see if they don't find that. I'm going to take a couple puffs of nicotine, and then we'll start working on the 125 if those fish don't find that food. Oh, there's a couple that are going underneath of it and nibbling at the food. Oh, there we go. The minnow went up in it. I counted this morning when I turned the lights on. I still have at least 8 minnows. I was able to count 8. There might be more than that I didn't see, but I did definitely see at least 8 minnows swimming around in the tank. Hey, there's a goldfish swam up into it a little tiny bit. They're getting a little more used to it. Oh, that's the one I want to see. I want to see one of these big koi swim up in there. We got a couple swimming around the bottom of it now. There's your bad nicotine, Shamu. All right, I definitely think by the live stream on Sunday, these fish are going to be completely used to that and know it's there and swimming up into it. They're still swimming around collecting up the food near it, so we'll give it another minute or two and see if any of them don't actually go up inside of it. We got a goldfish and swimming around the base of it. There we go. We got a little goldfish trying to swim up in there. Damn you, fish. Come on. That one goldfish keeps going up in there a little bit, but I think once he gets up above the surface level of the pond, everything looks weird and it darts and swims back down. So it might take them some time to get used to actually swimming into it. But that one goldfish is getting used to it. He's swimming around in there a little more now. I don't know what kind of minnows they are. They're just some minnows that I caught. They were little silvery things, and I brought them home. I have looked to try to identify them, and we have so many species of minnows in Maryland that look similar, and there are so many species that are actually invasive that could also be, where I collected this. It's not like I collected it from some pristine place where no other fish might possibly be. So I could have some invasive species. I could have any one of the number of native species. I have no idea. But I brought home a whole bunch of minnows one time, like 50 of them. And I eventually spread them out into a few different tanks. And this pond got some of them. I threw about a dozen of them in there when I was taking them out of the other tank. And as far as I know, most of them are still in there. All right, I have somebody that needs some plants. So the first thing we're going to do is get in there and pull some of that crypt out of the middle. And then I'm going to go down the other end and we're going to try working on that red tiger lotus a little bit. The red tiger lotus is going to be the fun part. The crypt will be easy. I can just pull some of that out of there and get it ready to go. The tiger lotus is going to be a bitch. I'll move the camera down to the other end once we start getting down there. But let me get a bucket, dear Liza. Oh, we can check on my mushroom bag too. Let's do that before we get started. It's getting so close. Like any day now, we're going to be cutting this open and starting the fruiting process. We might just do it tonight. Let's see what it looks like. And again, this is my original batch of spores. This is the golden teacher. I still haven't even opened up my other spores. They're still in my refrigerator. So it is getting really, really close to being caked up. The bottom of it is nice and white already. But we're not quite there yet. We're so close. I really think that I could probably start fruiting it at this point and we would get mushrooms. But I'm going to let it sit for a little longer. We'll check it again on Sunday. And maybe by Sunday, if it hasn't gotten any more than this, because it really doesn't look like it's changed a lot at all in the last few days. So I'm beginning to think it's grown in as much as it's going to. And it's probably time to go ahead and open it up and start flowering the mushrooms out of it. So we'll see. We'll give it till Sunday, unless I get bored tomorrow and decide to do it tomorrow. I haven't had mushrooms in like over a month now. I'm fucking antsy. I want some. So, all right, I was coming in here to get a bucket, wasn't I? Dear Liza. All right, I believe this bucket will work. See, when I do a vacuum on my 40 and I get all a bunch of that crud and stuff out of there, I wind up with a bunch of sand in the bottom. And so what I do is I leave it in there. I'll pour a bunch of hydrogen peroxide in there and I'll sterilize all of it. And I'll get all the cyanobacteria and algae and everything, bacteria that's in there. I'll kill all that off. And then once I'll rinse it out and I'll put that back in the tank. But in the meantime, we can throw some plants in on top of it. So this is, ouch, watch out for that bucket there. I just put it there. This is what my red tiger lotus looks like at the moment. And this is going to be an absolute nightmare getting in. I mean, it comes all the way down to here in the tank. So 2/3 of the tank basically has tiger lotus growing over it. This one's growing up and out of the damn tank. We got another one here that's trying to grow up and out of the water because it's got nowhere to go. Like there's no more surface area. This is like layers and layers of leaves. And then when we look in here, that's what I'm going to have to sort out and untangle as I snip, fronds and pull them out, or I snip the pads and pull them out. It's just an absolute nightmare in there. So first things first, let's get on with getting some of this crypt out of here. And then we'll worry about that monstrosity at the end when we get to it. All right. Last time I pulled stuff out of here, I pulled it off of this end. So I think this time we're going to pull it out of the middle and try to open this up a little bit. Let some light in. Get my hands down in there through all the roots. All right, well, I didn't get much roots with that one. The roots of this stuff must go all through the bottom of this tank. It's the Eco Complete substrate, so it's the bimodal. It's got some sandy material that sort of works its way down and settles at the bottom, and then it's got more gravelly type material that works its way to the surface. And so the roots get down into that sandy material where they get a good hold on everything. That's actually got a decent amount of roots on it. Remember, I'm not just pulling these out to dispose of them. I gotta mail these off tomorrow and get them to somebody. So I got me a little Java fern. I'll throw that in with it. Got a dead piece of, Let me get another bucket for trash. All right, so that's 2 big pieces pulled out of there. Let's pull a couple more out of here to open this up better. Disturbing the shrimp. All right, that's another good chunk there. Plenty of roots on it. Let's just keep going for it and pulling some of this bigger stuff out of here. I've already got it loosened up. And as long as the bulk of the root system is still in there, it'll grow back soon enough. Yeah, that's another good mass of roots on that one. Look at that puppy. All right, let's see about this. This one's barely hanging on, so we'll just go ahead and pull these 2 big ones out as well. Got some nice good roots with that. Pull some of this loose stuff out. And let's try to get some of these roots back into the substrate. All right, well, that certainly opens this end of the tank up quite a bit. Now this is growing down. I got a piece of, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this out or not. I have a piece of plastic down in the bottom in the corner. It's the egg crate plastic so that the rocks and stuff don't scratch the glass on the bottom. And so this crypt is actually growing through that plastic. And when I try to lift it up, it's pulling the entire corner up along with it. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get any of this out of here. Let's try to pull it straight through. It might break off, but that's all right. Hold on, I need both hands for this. I don't know if I can get them both in there or not. There we go. And didn't get a ton of roots with that one, but we got some. Good looking plant though, nice and dark red. Oh man, all right. Perfect, can't even tell I was in there. Got more shrimp in this tank than I realized. All right, that opens that up. Now, let's bring you down this way. Gotta lean you over. And I don't even know how to go about starting this. I almost want to go in there and just cut it all out and pull as much out of the top as I can. But I did say I would sell, I'd throw in a few of these Tiger Lotus along with what I'm shipping tomorrow. So let me see if I can at least get some of this out of here. This might be a smaller one in the back. Nope, that's more crypt. And I didn't get any roots with it either. Oh, wow, these are some big bulbs down there. I don't even know if I can pull those out. Got a few really big main bulbs. Let's try to get this one out of the back. The whole thing's coming up in a giant mass. They're probably still connected to each other underground. And we successfully got one of them out of there. Jesus, come on. Now getting all the fronds to come out with it is going to be, this is where it gets complicated because everything's all tangled together in a big knotted mass. I got to try to figure out which one or which. We're getting there. I've never tried just pulling it through and shaking it to make sure everything's loose as it comes out, but it seems to be working. There we go. So there's the whole plant. And I got a nice solid mass of root on it. So that's one red tiger lettuce. I don't know if I'm even going to be able to fit this in the damn package. This will take up an entire bag full of plants all by itself. It's just one small tiger lettuce. All right, we'll throw that in the bucket. Dear Liza. And I really want to just cut a bunch of this shit out of here. I might just get in there with my scissors and just chop a handful out and see what happens. I don't think I need to pull any more bulbs out of the bottom. I have two really big bulbs, or maybe three in a cluster, and then I have these smaller stuff coming out down here around the bottom and whatnot. Oh, I found a dead fish while I was in here. Let me go get rid of that because that's a really, really, really seriously dead fish. I'm gonna have to wash my hands after this one because this is gonna stink. All right, give me half a second, everybody. Let me get this flushed down to the great septic tank in the sky. All right. Oh, look, I got another little one. Maybe that's the one I can throw in the mail. It's a little teeny baby one that'll fit in with my other stuff I'm shipping. I only have so much room in my shipping packages. I can't ship giant piles of plants. This jiggle and tug technique seems to be working pretty well. I would just yank it out because I'm not worried about tearing the leaves off of this one like I was the one I was going to, ship to somebody. But I don't want to destroy the leaves that are staying in the tank. I want to try to get these out without damaging the other ones that are still going to be in there. All right, that's quite a lot of them. And that's still a lot left in there. And I guess these will all sort themselves back out over time. Got some dead fern in there. We'll pull that out. All right, the dead fern's out of the way. Do we need to thin this out anymore, or is that good? All right, well, that's what I pulled out of there. Let me go throw this in the trash can in the other room. I got the trash can in here is too small. All right, that was about 12 pounds of tiger lotus. All right, we got some more dead fern. We got some live fern that I don't think we need to have in there at this point. Knock a couple of them snails off. All right, another piece of java. And I think we're also going to pull this piece of java off of here because it's right in the way. There we go. Get the shrimp off of it. Oh, that's a big piece. Man, look at the roots on this one. Jesus. Couple of nice big solid fronds. All right. Let's see. We can also get this out of here because this is just stringy roots. And we'll pull these out of here that go all the way to the other end of the tank. All right, I think for now we can call that good. And like I said, all this stuff will sort itself out and figure out where it wants to be. I'm going to try to pull a couple of these really big fat ones out. Especially the ones that are getting down to the wrong end of the tank. All right, let me go throw this away and I'll get the camera up here and I'll show you what it looks like. Pull some of this dead debris and stuff off the surface. I've got more debris on the surface than I realized. All right, is that everything? I think that's about all of the dead stuff. Well, I keep saying that, but I keep finding dead stuff. Pull some of these less healthy looking pads out. I like the ones that still have the red, nice coloration and everything in them. Once they've been in there for a while, they start to fade and turn yellow, and eventually the pads die off, and you got to let new ones grow in. So I'm trying to get some of them out of here. Trying to get all the pads turned over in the right direction. All right, I think that's good. All right, we got ourselves a bucket of plants. That will be for sale tomorrow. If I get up early enough to get to the post office. Inadvertently watered my pothos plant that's on the floor down here. Got all kinds of shit down here. All right. So it looks a whole lot different, doesn't it? You can actually see in there now. See, that's a yellowy looking one. We can go ahead and pull that one out. It actually went in the trash can. I can't believe it. I made it. I love all that beautiful red coloring. This one's got a lot even on the top. Well, that's a good looking one there. So there you go. That's my red tiger lotus all trimmed up. You can actually, I know the water's all mucked up now because of what I just did, but you can actually see into the tank now. There's some light getting down in there. You can definitely see through here more where I pulled some of that Java out. And then down here is really, really wide open. That's devastation there. That used to be a solid block of crypt. But have no fear, everybody. That shit will grow back faster than you can shake a stick at it. Before you know it, we'll be in here doing this again. All right, that is all I wanted to accomplish tonight. I actually got it all done, and we got everybody fed. So the only thing we have left to do is the water change on the other 125, which we will get to on Sunday night. We'll do a water change on the other 125. Tonight, I'm calling it a night. We're going to sit down, hang out. So now is the time for a lot of you to skedaddle on out of here before you see me. For everybody else that wants to hang out and see me, I will be there momentarily. Let me get my light turned out, get my hood and everything closed back up. Okay. Let me close this one first. I have a little sliding latch that locks them together so that I can open it as one unit or two, but over time it's bowed in the middle here, and now the latch doesn't quite latch, but it does still get hung up on it. And sometimes if I lift this, this will come up halfway with it and then slam back down or something. And that was what was starting to happen when I was lifting it from the top. This was coming with it, and I knew as soon as I got to a certain point, it was just going to fall and slam into the tank. So I didn't want that to happen. All right, let's get my light turned on. Let's get this light turned off. Get my stool of death. And I think we are ready. Sit down, do some dabs. All right. I brought a bowl in with me. Oh, my bowl is empty. I'll actually go pack up another bowl, and I'll show you how I pack my bowls up, because I make them good. First thing we need to do is get a bud of, in this case, it's going to be some more Super Silver Haze, because that's all I've got right now. Not that I'm complaining. But we'll get a bud that'll fit in the bowl nicely. All right, let me knock out what's already in there. All right, now I've already got the bud smooshed in there. What I like to do is, this is some fairly low quality hash oil, but it is hash oil nonetheless. What I like to do is get my hot knife and scoop me up a big old glob of this. That ought to do it. Maybe a little more. There we go. That's plenty. And then, using the heat from the hot knife, I melt the hash oil all over the weed, and I let it soak into the bowl. And then that way I got weed soaked with hash oil. It makes it burn slower, makes it taste better. You're getting more of like a vape type hit than you are a bowl kind of hit. And it makes one bowl just smoke and smoke and smoke and smoke. So there you go. Nice bowl soaked with hash oil. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you're somebody that does deal with dabs and hash oil and stuff like that on a regular basis, get one of these little hot knives. They're like $10. You'll need like a 510 battery to go with it. But just the tip itself only costs about $10. And it is so much nicer than trying to use a dab tool and then get the dab tool hot with a lighter so it melts and everything. You just press a button and that little blade heats up, and it's just awesome. I love it. And of course, I didn't bring a lighter with me. Let me go get a lighter. And then I'll get caught up on some comments here. I can't believe I'm still drinking my coffee. It's almost 10 o'clock. It's good, but I'm going to put it away. It's right at that good drinking temperature, too. All right. Let's get caught up on some comments here. Maybe on Sunday night, we'll do a water change in this tank and that tank. We'll see what happens, how much we get done. Oh, and before I actually do sit down and get caught up on these comments, I just saw Arknight's name, and that reminded me to come look at the shrimp tank. It's getting clearer. It's still not what I would call clear, but it is getting clearer, and you can just see the shrimp just swimming everywhere in there. It's just like a little hive of activity with all the shrimp swimming around. But the water, if you're new or haven't, been following along, the water in this tank got cloudy a long time ago, and it just stayed cloudy. And so eventually I decided that what I needed to do was increase the amount of circulation and biofiltration. That's what was giving me the cloudy water. And so Arknight gave me a really small sponge filter designed for little tiny tanks like that. And it's been, a week and a half now since we put it in. I figured it would take 2 to 3 weeks for it to really, show its full effect, because it does have to cycle in and everything. But it's clearing up pretty fast. I think by the time we get to the 3-week mark, that tank will be crystal clear and looking beautiful. So that was your update on that. The fish guy, I do not use any food, ferts, tabs, additives, CO2, nothing. I do have the Eco Complete substrate, so I do have planted substrate. But I don't add any other, additives for the plants. All right, I got a lot of reading and catching up to do here. All right. Let's see. All right, getting caught up. Oh, thank you, Ark. I hope you do use my link for all your Christmas shopping. I could use all the extra help I can get right now, believe me. New road bad. All right, let's see. think I said hello already, Winston, but just in case I didn't, I will say hello again. The red tiger lotus does actually bloom fairly often. The only problem with the tiger lotus blooming is that it blooms so fleetingly. Like the flower is there and then it's gone. Like you got to catch it while it's open. I'll come down and I'll see a flower bud there. It'll be like maybe 2 days. I'm waiting for it to open. I'll come down in the morning or something, or sometimes late in the evening. It doesn't seem to matter. I'm used to flowers that like open when the sun comes up and they close back up at night when the sun goes down. Tiger lotus don't seem to fucking care. They just open whenever they're ready to open. If it happens to be at night, it's at night. But I've come down, like say in the morning, and it's just starting to open, and I'll come down later that night to feed, and it's already past its prime and starting to close back up. I swear they don't last a day, but I do get flowers on them fairly often. One point I actually had 2 blooms at the same time. No, Eugene, smoking mushrooms is not an option. First of all, when you apply the heat for the flame, it destroys the psilocybin. So you're not going to get any benefit of the psilocybin. And it also, by burning it like that, it creates toxic waste gases and whatnot. So you definitely don't want to try to smoke mushrooms. Am I ever scared of getting electrocuted? No. Hey, Redhead. Yeah, I might do that, TJ. Hello, by the way, if I didn't say hi already. I think I did. That's probably what I'll do is I'll just cut all of the vegetation, all the foliage off and just send the root mass, and then they can plant that and it'll send up new roots or new sprouts. It is pronounced bouquet. No, I'm not going to send all of that to them. I'm going to send them a little bit of the Java fern. I'll send them some of that crypt. And then I asked them today if they wanted some red tiger lotus, and they said, yeah. So I'll send them that little tiger lotus. That's just an extra I'm throwing in. Hey, TK, how are you? All right, enjoy your other live stream there, Judge Dredd. Let's see. All right, there's the fertilizer question. I already answered that. Well, fertilizer for floating plants, you would have to use like a liquid fertilizer. Obviously, you couldn't use root tabs or anything. It depends on the plants. My stuff, like, the floating stuff I've got, whether it's water sprite or duckweed or whatever, again, I don't have any problem with my tanks not having stuff growing in them. I do make sure I've got a little bit of calcium and magnesium in the water. I keep the nitrate and the phosphate, are fairly elevated in my tanks. I'm not one of those people that keeps the nitrate and everything down near 0. This tank is usually 60 to 80 parts per million. Most of my tanks are at least 80 parts per million or, higher with the nitrate. So there's nutrients and food and stuff available. So if you're the kind of person that has, first of all, if you've got inert gravel, and then if your tanks have, almost no nitrate, no phosphate or whatever, you might have to add a little bit of plant food to it. But I never really worry about it. My stuff seems to do fine. Laura, you made it. Sea monkeys, nice. Sea monkeys, I do believe, are a type of brine shrimp, or there's something very similar. And you know, something interesting about the sea monkeys is when they were marketed and sold, they were sold as like an instant gratification kind of thing because you get like an instant zoo, and you know, that's how they marketed it back in the day. But when you got your little sea monkey kit, the thing that pissed me off when I was a kid was that you still had to wait 24 hours because you had to put you filled your little container up, and then you had to put the water conditioner in and let it sit for 24 hours. And then you could add the eggs, and it would, within hours, you would see these little sea monkeys swimming around. But what they didn't tell you, they were lying to you when they told you that the water conditioner is where the eggs were. That actually contains the eggs. So you were putting the eggs in and giving them a day to gestate. And then a day later, when you added the eggs, and suddenly you were seeing these things swimming around, that's because they hatched since yesterday. And so sea monkeys have always lied to us. First of all, they're not monkeys. And secondly, they're not instant. You have to give them a day. Yeah, floating plants will tend to drink up nitrate. But I'm telling you, for all the people out there that talk about plants, being the solution to nitrate and everything, they're really not as nitrate hungry as people think they are. A plant can only use so much food. In fact, if depending on how the fertilizer is produced, if you get some types of fertilizer, I mean, like for your house plants or your garden plants or whatever, if you give them too much fertilizer, it kills them. That is fertilizer that's typically in a form that the plant can't really control how much of it absorbs. It just absorbs whatever's put into the soil. Higher quality fertilizers just make the food available for the plants, and so you can't really over fertilize. If you're putting too much nitrogen in the soil, the plant's still only going to pull out the nitrogen it needs. And so the nitrogen, the nitrate, the source of nitrogen that's in our aquarium, or ammonia, nitrite, any of that will get picked up by the plant, but it can only use so much of that. It's not like a filter, like as long as you keep running nitrate through it, it'll keep pulling it out. It only uses what it needs. And so if you don't have a lot of lighting and you don't have fast growing plants, you're slow growing anubias, or you're really slow growing Java fern that's in a low lighted tank is not doing a lot to remove those nitrates. It's not just drinking nitrates out of your tank. Really fast growing stuff like Java moss, duckweed, that will tend to have more of an impact because it is such a fast growing plant. It does draw a lot more nutrients out of the water, but even that is still going to be a limited amount of nitrates. If you got a tank with 80 parts per million nitrate in it and you throw some duckweed on the surface, it might reduce it a little bit. But if you were already in a tank with 80 parts per million nitrate, that probably means you feed a lot, you got a high stocking density. Putting some duckweed in there is only going to do so much. It's not going to be this magic solution to just keeping your nitrate, down at 30 parts per million at all times or whatever. It just doesn't work that way. So plants are certainly helpful, and they do help filter your tank in a variety of different ways. They're a good habitat. They're a good, food source for a lot of fish. They look nice. I enjoy the whole process of watching them grow in and everything. There's a lot of benefits to live plants in your aquarium, but the idea that like, oh, just put some plants in your tank and you won't have to worry about water changes anymore because the nitrate just won't be there. It just really doesn't work like that. All right. It is all farce, lies, and deception. I am actually going to talk about something stupid right now. Because I had a hilarious conversation with Zini last night about penguins. And so we're going to talk about penguins for a minute. Zini had made some sort of comment about penguins swimming. And I very pedantically pointed out that technically penguins don't really swim. They actually fly through the water. And that started a whole firestorm of conversation of like, basically, what the fuck are you talking about? So first of all, let me say that if you define flying as moving through the air and swimming as moving through the water, then that's fine. And penguins swim, if that's how you want to define it. I don't have an issue with that. I'm not trying to be a dick about it. But from a scientific point of view, I find this to be very fascinating, is that penguins, the way they move through the water is the same way birds move through the air. Remember, water and air are both fluids. One is just much more viscous than the other one. Water is like 1,000 times thicker than air is. And so to move through the air, you need light weight and you need big wings, big surface areas on your wings, and you need the feathers to do certain things. But the way they produce lift and thrust is what's important. A penguin's body is very differently shaped, and it's got those stubby little wings and everything, but they're wings. They're not flippers. And when they swim through the water, they're moving their wings the same way a bird moves its wings through the air. They just have a much, much smaller, sleeker surface area because the fluid they're moving through is so much thicker. But they're moving through it exactly the same way a bird will move through the air. The technical definition of, and I'm making this up as I go along, but the technical way you can think about swimming is like pushing off of the water, like the way a paddle from a canoe pushes against the water. You could do that in air. If you could float the kayak in the air, you just need a massive paddle, like a giant fan, to push a lot of air behind you. That's not what an airplane is doing. An airplane is actually generating lift and thrust, and that's what's lifting it up and then moving it through the air. It's not pushing itself off of the air in the same way you would as if you were swimming. And that's what I mean when I say that penguins fly through the water. They're not technically swimming. Again, if you want to define swimming as being in the water and moving through the water, then fine, that's fine. But they don't swim like fish swim or like seals swim or like dolphins swim or whatever. They swim the way a bird flies. And I just find that really interesting. They're still birds and they still propel themselves through a fluid medium just like a bird does. It's just they're moving through a much, much more viscous fluid when they do it. So that's all I meant by that last night, Zini. Nope, by that logic, seals do not fly because seals don't have wings. They don't move their flippers the way, if you made seal flippers wing size, they wouldn't be able to fly. They're not moving their flippers like wings. They're moving their flippers like flippers, and they're pushing off of the water. The same way if you put like swim fins on your feet, that doesn't make you a bird. That doesn't mean you can suddenly fly because you have flippers on your feet. You're still swimming. You're still pushing yourself off of the water rather than moving through it with lift and thrust. And that's not how seals swim. Although they do swim more closely resembling the way a penguin would swim, that's for sure. I don't know if a T-Rex could swim. I would like to think of a T-Rex trying to do a backstroke. I was on Discord with Zini. It was a private direct messaging with him. All right, what was the last thing I wanted to talk about tonight? I had an agenda. I had a couple things I wanted to talk about. I knew I wanted to talk about the penguin thing. What was the other one? Oh, the Christmas song I was listening to tonight. This has always been one of my favorite Christmas songs, partially for the reason I'm going to explain, but I just enjoy it. It's just a nice song to listen to. It's got a nice melody and everything, and it's just a nice Christmas song. But it's one of those Christmas songs that just makes me shake my head and ask, like, do people actually listen to the lyrics, or do they just hear the Father Christmassy part and think, oh, this is a nice Christmas song? I can't remember the guy's name. It's Greg Lake, maybe. One-hit wonder guy. He just did this one Christmas song, as far as I know. That's all anybody knows him from. And the song is called I Believe in Father Christmas. And if you listen to the words of the song, the whole song is about growing up and realizing he was lied to about Christmas, and that, he bought into all this bullshit about peace on earth and happiness. And like when you wake up the day after Christmas, the world's the same as it was before. And, and the song ends by saying, the Christmas you get, you deserve, which I think is a really, really fucking sharp statement. And like, that's how the song ends. Like, you get the Christmas you deserve, motherfucker. That's a Christmas song. Like, I get it. It's about Christmas and everything, but it's not exactly like peace, love, and Noel and everything. It is singing about peace and wishing peace and everything, but it's also kind of lamenting the fact that we don't really have it. And it's just kind of this fantasy we all indulge in around the holidays. So I just think that's just a weird song to be a Christmas song. It puts me in the mind of Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. That song gets played a zillion times on the 4th of July, and it gets played at political rallies. And like anybody, anytime they want to seem patriotic, they play Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. Have you ever listened to the words of that song? And I'm not going to go into it, but if you want, Google the lyrics for Born in the USA and read them, and then wonder why do you play this song on 4th of July? Like, it doesn't seem like the right song to be playing. But again, they listen to the chorus and they don't listen to any other words in the song or whatever. And it is a rocking song. It's Bruce after all. Oh, that makes sense, Eugene. There's a lot of dudes out there like that like, I don't know them by their actual name. And then I hear their name and I'm like, oh, that's a nobody, but they actually turn out to be somebody that was in like 9 different, they were in Cream and, 6 other bands that I'm like, okay, I guess that is a somebody then. So that makes sense that would be the lake of the Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I sent you the lyrics to that song. I sent you the song a couple times now, hoping you'd actually listen to it. And today, when I was listening to it, I decided that instead of sending you the song, I was actually just going to send you the lyrics so you could read them. So I did actually send you the lyrics to that song. So I've been saying all along, this is your kind of Christmas song, dude. Like, this song is written for me and you. And like I say, it's a good song. It's very pleasant to listen to. It's acoustic guitar, which I typically don't like. I'm not a big fan of the acoustic guitar. I know that sounds weird, but I'm not. I'm more of a synth guy than an acoustic guitar guy. But it's a lovely song. I really enjoy it. You were in the Charlie Brown choir. I saw a TikTok the other day. Of course, I saw it on YouTube, but it was originally a TikTok. And it was some woman doing all the Charlie Brown dances, like the one scene where it's like the whole group of people dancing. It singled each one of them out, and it showed a split screen of her doing the dance, and then, of course, the cartoon character doing the dance. And it was really good. She really, really got them down really well because they're so unnatural and weird looking movements for a dance. And she did a really good job of mimicking them. I got a kick out of that one. Well, if your pile is getting too hot, then you're running it too hot. You're putting too much nitrogen in it. What you can do is put more carbon in it, which is going to be brown material. Remember, there's green and there's brown going into your compost pile. And it's important to remember that coffee grounds are considered green. I know they look brown in color, but the difference between green and brown material going in a compost pile is that green material is nitrogen-rich material. So banana peels, fresh grass clippings, any green material, broccoli, carrots, any of that kind of stuff is still going to be very nitrogen-rich. Brown material is brown dried grass, dead leaves, sticks,
anything like that is going to be very nitrogen poor, but much higher in carbon content. So your brown material is going to give you your nitrogen, and your green material is going to give you, your brown material is going to give you your carbon, and your green material is going to give you your phosphorus and your nitrogen. And you got to have a fairly even blend of everything. And if your pile's running hot, you just got too much nitrogen in there, and you need to cool it down a little bit, slow it down. So you can slow it down by reducing oxygen, reducing moisture, or you can get the balance more blended and get the ratio of nitrogen down lower, and that'll cool the pile down a little bit. But you don't want to run it too hot, because it won't decompose properly, and it could even catch fire. Or other, you don't want to run your pile too hot like that. Yes, I know banana's yellow. That is why specifically I mentioned banana peels, orange peels. Green means it has nitrogen in it. So anything that's going to have the high nitrogen content, if you threw an egg, not the egg shell, but if you threw an egg in your compost pile, that would be considered green. There's tons of protein, which is a nitrogenous, chemical, so, or whatever you want to call it. So phosphorus and nitrogen is green, and then the carbon material is going to be your brown. That's why coffee grounds are considered green. Ground coffee and roasted coffee beans, they haven't lost their nitrogen. They've been browned by the cooking process. If they dried out on the tree, turned brown, and then fell to the ground, then they would be brown, because all of the nitrogen would have been pulled back out of them for the plant to store in the roots or whatever. Like wood sticks, wood chips, dry autumn leaves, anything like that is going to be considered brown. Anything that's nitrogenous is going to be considered green. All right, I got a comment about compost here, so let me see what I got wrong, or if I got something wrong. Oh, okay. I was just reminded that poop is also considered green. So if you're using any kind of manure or droppings or anything like that to go into the pile as well, like a manure type compost is going to be green too, even though it is brown. So thank you, Tim. Oh, and Tim, another one I got a. Well, it could also be steaming. If you got steam coming out of there in the summertime, that's not good. If you got steam coming out of your pile this time of year, it should be warm in the middle. If you dig into a compost pile, it should be, in the wintertime, if you open your compost pile, you should see steam and stuff coming out of it. If it's, 80 or 90 degrees and moist, you're going to see steam coming off of it, and on a cold ass day. So that's not anything to be concerned about. But if it is running too hot, that's why. And again, this time of year, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But if, and for future reference, like that's where you're going to get that excessive heat from, is going to be from your nitrogen. So I did want to clear up something, Tim, that I sent you the other day. I got a friend Tim watching right now. This is the kind of weird shit that I was just kind of laughing at myself, because it was like all I could do not to send him an email to correct myself. But whenever I know I've made a mistake about something, I just feel absolutely compelled to go and correct myself, no matter how fucking trivial it is. So I talked a couple weeks ago about how he and I had watched the same Doctor Who episode. And in that particular episode, there was a chant that was said by the Order of the Women, or whoever the fuck those people were. I can't remember what they called themselves. And they chanted this thing over and over again. And so when Tim had sent me the email saying he had watched it or whatever, as a reply, I just sent him back the chant, knowing he would, get it immediately or whatever. And what I sent to him was, I said, secret fire, secret flame, because it's like this real whispery kind of thing. And like, that's what it sounded to me like they were saying. I watched that episode again last night, and I actually heard it differently. And I realized, I listened more closely. I realized what they're saying is sacred fire, sacred flame. And I was like, God damn it. You know, I was so close to like emailing you back to say like, oh, I got that wrong. That's not what they say. They really say, you know, sacred fire. And then I was like, who fucking cares? Like, that is so unimportant. I'm not going to send an email at 11 o'clock at night to correct that. I also knew I'd have the opportunity to do that now. So I did feel that I'd still be able to correct myself, and now I'll be able to sleep easy tonight. But yeah, I should have sent sacred fire, sacred flame, not secret. I feel better now. I got that off my chest. You're digging too hard. Christmas cookies. Hey, Rosie. Yeah, it's almost the anniversary of my story. And boy, howdy, do I have some stuff for making cookies now. And I still have a whole jar full of reclaim that's still in the alcohol. I need to rewash or wash back or whatever Steve calls it. I still need to get all that cleaned out. So I'm going to get several more grams of this. But that, like, this is a 23 milliliter container. It's the big hockey puck size. As you know, this is my normal size. So you can see the big one is considerably larger. And look how full that is. That's all hash oil. It's low grade hash oil. It's like reclaim and stuff like that. But that is what I've got for another batch of cookies. Now, all of that's not going to go in there because that would be devastatingly powerful. But a lot of that will go in there. And then I got enough. I can probably make a second batch that'll be equally as powerful once I divide that up. So I think I'm going to start, when I make a batch of cookies, I'm going to start weighing out how much reclaim I use. Now, the potency of the reclaim will vary from batch to batch, so I won't know exactly what I'm doing. But if I get a set amount, like using 8 grams of reclaim in one batch of cookies is the sweet spot or whatever, then I'm going to be within a window because it's all similar, you know. So I'm going to weigh it out this time. I think I'm going to start with 10 grams because I got a lot, and see what kind of devastation I get from that. And we might have to scale it back from that. I think 10 grams of that stuff is going to be whammy doodle. Eyeing it up, I'm guessing I was maybe in the 7 to 8 gram range the last batch of cookies I made. And Steve said they were really fucking strong. Like one small cookie just got him ripped. So 10 grams might be a little silly. Like one bite might be enough for if I use 10 grams. But I got so much of it. I don't even know what to do with it. I got so much of it in there. So if anybody wants any of that, you're willing to make a nice hearty donation to the channel, I'll send you a thank you gift. Found some questionable materials. Uh-oh. No, that stuff, I don't even like the cookies I make out of. Usually when I make cookies, I give them away to people because I don't like the taste of it. And when you make it, you know, as strong as I make it so that you don't have to eat 2 cookies to get a buzz, you eat a half a cookie and you're high as shit. You can just taste that reclaim in there, and it just does not taste good. It's real oily. It leaves like a film in your mouth. If you're just trying to get it in you to get the effect of it, it's tolerable. But if I don't like it. But I've been dealing with that reclaim for decades now, and so, or over a decade probably at this point. And I'm just, I don't even like the smell of it, the taste of it, or anything anymore. Everybody else says it tastes fine, and I used to think it tasted fine too. It doesn't taste like my starting product, but it doesn't taste bad. It's not like res that tastes like ass. But I've tasted that reclaim so many fucking times over the years. I just don't like the taste or smell of it anymore, especially eating it in cookie form. Make sure I put them in a nice festive tin. Put a bow on top of it. Bob, how are you? I've never done the hash rosin before. I do some dry sift hash occasionally. I've had the black hash, like the rolled hash. And of course, I do my hash oil all the time. This is actually Super Silver Haze. This is good top shelf hash oil here. But I've never done the rosin, or I've never had like the pressed where they squeeze it under heat and the stuff oozes out the sides. I've always wanted to have that because it looks amazing. In fact, I've even considered buying a press, but the press I was looking at was like $350. And honestly, it's easier for me to just make butane hash oil or use my hexane, make hexane hash oil. If I could get a working press for $50, I might give it a shot. I've tried using the flat iron. You can take a flat iron and put some wax paper in it or some parchment paper and then squeeze a bud really hard, and you're supposed to get some stuff come out of it, but I've never had it actually work for me. So I've never actually had the rosin like that before. And I've never bought it at the store either. Every time I get it at the store, I would always get shatter or crumble or something. I've never got the rosin. Or I don't know. Maybe I did get rosin at some point. I don't know. But I do the dry sift hash fairly often because that's easy to do. And you can do a dry sift, and then you can still take the weed and then still make hash oil out of what's left. You know, you don't have to ruin it. All right, I think we're going to do 2 of those. May as well heat my glass up again since it's still hot. Conserve some of my butane. There we go. That's the one I was looking for. All right. How do you get a hold of me? You can email me. Or if you are a member and you have access to my Discord server, you can direct message me on Discord. But you can find my email address if you go under any of my videos and go to the description below. I have a default setting that all my information and everything, you might have to hit the more button and open it up, but my email is right there underneath all my YouTube videos. It's danielhiteshew@gmail.com. So it's easy enough to remember. It's just my name at Gmail. But you can contact me that way if you want. Presentation is everything. You know, they've done those studies. I think it's time to get on up in the first position. It's already after 10. Actually got a lot of work done tonight, though. Still not really seeing any fish going up into that tower, but give it time. After being in there for a few days, I think they'll get a little more used to it, and we might see them start to drift up and in and out of there. I am going to start putting food in there the way I did this evening a little bit. See if we can't get them to start getting more comfortable with going in and out of there, especially if they start associating with food being in there. Maybe I'll try putting some of those floating pellets like I talked about. All right, everybody, it's party time now. I'm talking about presentation being everything. Have you ever seen like where the what are they called now? Sommeliers, the wine taster guys that, you know, spit it out and tell you how amazing the wine is or whatever. There has been so many studies done on that prove that that's just utter bullshit.
that if you take some box wine and you put it in a really fancy bottle and give it to them in a very nice wine glass, they'll almost always say how good it is. But if they see you pouring it directly out of the box, they'll say the exact same wine is crap. And if you call them out on it, they all always say the same thing. Well, presentation, has a lot to do with how you perceive the flavors and so on and so forth. And like, okay, like that's fine. Why do you still have a job then? Like, what the fuck does you tasting shit have to do with anything if the presentation can completely change what you say about it? What the fuck does your opinion matter? Everything they taste ought to be given to them in like a dinner glass, not a fancy wine glass. You don't get to see them pour it out of the fucking bottle. You don't get to see the cork come out. They get a glass of wine in a fucking coffee mug, taste it in a coffee mug and tell me what you think about that wine. If it was all done that way, that might be all right. But, if you're going to tell me, the effervescence and the way it looks and the atmosphere in the room and, and the lighting and the fucking music that's playing in the background really affects the taste, then the taste is fucking irrelevant. Why do you still have a job? So that just always annoys me. A lot of things bother me. My wife always tells me how much. She's like, you hate everything. I'll mention something about like, oh, God, I hate it when, blah, 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 whatever. And she's like, you hate everything. So she's not far wrong. Yeah, there's a lot of professions out there that are just utter bullshit scams that the people really are not doing anything at all, and just people throw money at them. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to start winding down and turning some lights out. We'll get some disco ball action for a few minutes. We got half the room on that switch. Pond is on its own switch. That's already turned off. And then we got the other half of the room on this switch. Actually, you know what? Let me get my stuff out of here while I still got some light to see by. And then I'll come in and turn out that last light. We'll get a few more minutes of some disco ball excitement. Kick off your Friday night in style. All right, last thing I need to pull out of here, and then we will call it good. All right, and I got one switch that turns off of this side of the room. Now we got disco ball heaven. Damn, she hates everything. I can just do like a 1 hour complaint about whatever's annoying me that day. My wife is an amazing person. Oh, see, there you go, heavyweight. I'm glad somebody enjoyed that. And I mean that legitimately, not just like it's a bullshit profession, but it really, like, if that's true, if the atmosphere, if the mood you're in, like all these things will affect how you perceive the flavor of something. Your memories, like if you've had good experiences with something, that you're going to have a more positive experience with it again in the future. Like all of that stuff really does make a difference. And so if all of those things, like, again, why do you have, like, what purpose are you serving? It seems so absolutely ridiculous. And then when you can switch it all up, and again, you gave it to me in the wrong thing, and that's why I said it tasted bad. Now I think it tastes good. It's the exact same fucking wine. The thing I think is fascinating now, you want to hear about a bullshit profession. They now have water sommeliers. You can go to, like, if you go to fancy restaurants, they actually have a water menu. You got a variety of different waters that are from different places that you can purchase, and different bottling companies, different springs, and that sort of thing. And they actually have water sommeliers that taste test the water to tell you how the water tastes. I swear it's a shame I was born with principles and morals. Oh no, I agree with that too. Heavyweight, you can buy wine out there that's almost vinegar, and then you can buy some really good high quality stuff or whatever. Price on a lot of different products doesn't always reflect the quality; it reflects the brand, and a lot of times stuff will get overpriced because there's a certain kind of person out there that if they see a really high price on something, that bottle of wine is $90. It must be good. They probably could have bought it for 40 and it would have been just as good, but that 90 makes it that much better. So psychology, and like if you're willing to just exploit the way people's brains work, because our brains are really not complicated. We're not nearly as sophisticated as we think we are. And if you're willing to just get in there and tweak and twist and poke and hit all the right buttons and everything, again, it's the world should be considered lucky. I was born with a conscience and a decent, a decent personality. Yeah, there you go. Bring the price down. Last I looked at the tower, there was nothing in it, but now that it is dark, there's still nothing in it. I thought there was a goldfish in it, but then I realized that the goldfish was blinking, and then I realized that it was actually just a disco ball light hitting the certain spot that was reflecting at me and making it look red. So it's neither. On that same similar note, I remember a lesson my father taught me once when I was a kid. He said, if you ever, and he was kind of joking when he said this, but the principle still holds true. He said, if you ever need to get rid of an old piece of furniture or something, and you put it out on the street with a sign that says free on it, it'll sit there forever. He said, don't put a sign that says free on it. Put it out on the street and put a sign that says $10 on it, and then somebody will come steal it, and you'll be rid of your chair. So yeah, you paint the painting and you put a $27,000 price tag on it. Somebody would probably buy it because if it's a $27,000 painting, it must be good. Yeah, I thought about the stability and all that. Yeah, everything is subjective. The worst that could happen is if the bucket that it's sitting on decides to collapse. It may tumble this way and I may get some spillage or something. But worst case scenario, if somehow the whole thing were to lift up and come out, it's only going to be 3 gallons of water. It's not like the pond is going to collapse if it falls. As far as like I already thought about before I realized that it wouldn't fit on the bucket properly, I thought about cutting some notches in the bottom of the can so that it would sit into the notches and couldn't move around or slide. And while I was walking around the Walmart, I was thinking about what's going to make it move or slide. Like it's not going to just shift on its own unless the bucket gives way. It's going to have to be acted on by an outside force, and it's like in the pond. Like I'm not going to reach in there and push it. The cats aren't going to go do anything. So I'm pretty confident that it's just going to sit there. I don't really think it's going to be an issue. It probably wouldn't be a terrible idea to take it down and put it back up tomorrow when I'm awake. But I want the fish to get used to it, and that's the only way they're going to get used to it is by it being in the tank and then being able to swim in and out of it. So we'll leave it there. If I regret it, we'll all find out on Sunday night because I'll certainly let you know if I came down tomorrow to a catastrophe. But I tried to put it far enough out in the tank that even if it does fall, it'll hit the tank and go back in. I don't think it's going to actually tumble out of the tank, but we'll see. Anywho, I think I'm going to wind that down for the night. Yeah, I don't think the fish are going to bump it hard enough to knock it or move it. Because it still has inertia. It is still 3 gallons of water. It's going to take a fair amount of force to actually start moving that. It is sitting on those 2
pieces of metal though, and those are basically like little rollers. They could roll and it could slide off of it. So I think it'll be all right. We'll find out. I'll know in the morning, I guess. I'll let you all know on Sunday. So, all right, everybody. I'm going to be up for a while, Zini, if you're hanging out. I don't know if you're still trying to do your diurnal lifestyle or not, but I'm going to be around for a while. I feel wide awake, and it's 10:30 already, so we'll see how that goes. All right, everybody. So long, and thanks for all the fish. Good night.